spare time, really our junior and senior year, we just kind of started dreaming up what was possible. Actual plan for the building has evolved quite a bit for a variety of different reasons. The first concept that we proposed was called Moran Ecological.
Here's this coal plant that was built in 1952 right on the lake, on the shore, which now is this beautiful waterfront, but at the time was a lumber yard, it was an industrial space, it was incredibly polluted, and so for us, what a cool story that you could take back this last real remnant of the industrial waterfront, but keep its character and let it tell its own story, so it doesn't get plastered over and become another vanilla box building, but actually tells the story of Burlington within the course of 50 years, building a coal plant and then turning it into a net zero building. So for us early on, it was like, here's this big space that's really cool inside and can tell a story. Initially, the project was really about food and energy, renewable energy and local sustainable food, and those are still big parts of the project, but we've really expanded to include 3 other things really, and that's recreation, being on the waterfront right next to the lake. How do you get people outside and enjoying this amazing waterfront that we have? And art, which is something that we don't have an art background at all, but understanding that the building has been a real attraction for artists in general, and it's also this really unique space and a chance to have a great art scene in Burlington, but we could, if we have a venue where we can elevate it, then that would be a real resource. And then the last part of it is figuring out how the building could serve a broader community audience than just what was inside the building. And so thinking about events and thinking about how we can really be a platform for existing. We're down the waterfront, but we can support the Intervale by having Intervale type events or having them with a small space in the building. We can support the farmers market, we could do a TEDx talks, we can partner with Champlain and UVM. So the idea of thinking about how we can expand beyond the 4 walls of the building. And those things were a part of our initial plan, but they've really matured, I think, now. We've built up a whole lot of both intellectual property, designs and understanding about the building, but also there's real momentum and physical change happening on the waterfront. So the city has put in a lot of money and effort into cleaning up the building and into putting in a new street, cleaning up the site, and putting in a new bike path, a new street that goes down past Moran. So suddenly we have the ability to access the building. The site itself is much cleaner. There are plans and designs for how we can clean up the building and the site the rest of the way. So we're really benefiting from a lot of previous work that's been done. That being said, it's a brownfield. There's a whole lot of, we'll have a complex vapor barrier system in the building because there are a number of pollutants still in the building. But at the same time, it's building science people tackle this kind of thing all the time. So it's just a matter of figuring it out and doing it. And we've got amazing, I think one of the cool things from a green building perspective about Burlington is that we have nationally recognized firms in town that are environmental management firms, that are engineers and architects and landscape architects. And so as UVM, or a year out of UVM, we've had a chance to build a team of really accomplished people that know a lot. And so we've really been able to learn and put together this group, which is a really cool thing going from the green building program at UVM, which is, it's sort of an intro. It's like you're dipping your pinky toe in the water.
We can start from kind of a really broad strokes. So we've been trying to synthesize all of the different things that are going down in the building into kind of 3 concise parts. So working kind of up from the ground floor, the first 2 floors, so kind of the basement and at grade level, we're calling a market hall. So it's a space that's designed to highlight Burlington, Vermont culture through kind of 3 specific scopes. So one being food and beverage, one being arts and artisans, and the third being recreation. So you can imagine a small restaurant space next to a small glass blowing space, next to an educational brewery, next to a space that's teaching 3D printing. So
next to a small sculptural playground, next to a place where you can rent a bike.
So rather than any big, large uses, it's kind of taking the model of Atwater Market's a great example in Montreal, or Chelsea Markets in New York City. But there's these kind of all varying in sizes and scopes market halls across the country. So kind of taking that concept and applying it to Burlington. The second biggest use in the building, or really the core of the building, is the turbine hall, which is the third floor, which is a 1,500 person capacity event space. So kind of anchored by music events, but also open for community events, conferences, trade shows, so things like the Winter Farmers Market, or the Winter Brewers Festival, or a TEDx event or a trade show. And then the third use, which is there's actually 3 to 4 floors of what we're calling kind of co-working innovation space. So mission-driven businesses and nonprofits working together in an open office setting.
And then the very top floor of the building is, it's actually said that when it was a coal plant, the coal would get brought all the way up to the very top of the building, and then this small coal train would drop it into these 3 big funnels that would carry it to coal bunkers that would bring it down to boilers. So we're keeping that very top level, which has the row of windows that looks out at the lake, totally open and as close to the way it is now as possible. So it becomes kind of a living museum of the building, while also being open for small events and for it's an observation tower, basically, which for us is exciting that it's a unique view. It's something that our goal of the building is that it's not just a place where you go and buy something, or it's not just a place where you go and see a show, but it's something where there's always something to do. That those some things are changing, so there's something new, and there's a reason to go down there, or there are many reasons to go there on a regular basis, whether you're a UVM student or an 8-year-old or a 65-year-old here for a conference, or a whole family coming down to have dinner together, whatever it is. That's a big part of why we think that space can be really cool, because it makes the waterfront a year-round destination, and that's that. I'm really excited. One technology that we've been looking at are a series of green walls that actually connect into the HVAC, the air handling systems for the building. So I'm really excited to see the building in its raw sort of industrial state with planned designed life growing in it, and then to see, I imagine when the doors open and people walk in and there's this coal plant that's been under construction for a while, but it still has the cool industrial pieces of it, and yet it's filled with people and light and plants. That's what I'm really excited about.
Let's see. There's one of our potential tenants is a brewery, and they're interested in doing a really small experimental brewery that's all geared around education. So kind of taking advantage of the incredible wealth of knowledge that's already in this state. And we've got this uprising of world-class brewers and breweries here. So designing a brewery that's intentionally made to bring those brewers into the space and then reach beyond nationally and even globally. So you could have a brewer from Vermont here, a Hill Farmstead brewer coming and doing a residency, and the next month there's somebody from Belgium, and you're teaching classes and you're giving talks and you're creating one-of-a-kind beer in a one-of-a-kind space. So that's one of the most exciting little tidbits that we're working on.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I think especially today, one of the most powerful things that Burlington can do and the small cities can do is figure out how to tell their story. You see all around the country, young people are leaving cities and moving elsewhere, and yet in Burlington we actually are seeing, and Vermont as a whole, young people are leaving Vermont, but in Burlington we have a real surge of young people moving back or staying here, and figuring out how we as a city can make the Moran plant, or how the Moran plant is part of the story of the city and how we solve problems, instead of saying, we had an old coal plant and we tore it down and we put up this new building and now it's a boat club. We're saying, let's take this former coal plant and let's actually tell its story and create a net zero building, and incorporate sustainable transportation practices. Let's figure out how to apply bike transit to Burlington and have shuttle systems and public transit that actually works and that people want to ride, and use this building because it's really iconic and big and has been a huge pain for the last 30 years as a springboard to do something really cool. And through that, tell the story of Burlington, hopefully set a standard so that future development actually set the bar a little bit higher, because otherwise we just keep building mediocre buildings that use a lot of energy and that don't have public transit in mind until all of a sudden Burlington isn't somewhere that we want to live. So that we want to do the opposite of that and take a stand and do something that's exciting and that represents the kind of sustainable initiatives that we would all like to see.
Being a student is an enormous asset. People in this town absolutely want to help you, and they are an email or a phone call away. I mean, it's amazing how many people we have cold called or emailed and just had coffee with that have turned into meaningful relationships. I mean, Charlie, arguably our greatest, ally in this project, our third founder, we met by emailing and having coffee at Muddy Waters. That kind of thing is incredibly possible and easy to do, and it's all about, being humble and confident and willing to learn.
No matter how sort of professional it is really all about, it's like you go to the outing club and there's all of these soft skills classes, for example, and those things, we have friends that are now in the MBA program, they're like, it turns out all the things that we're learning, yes, we're doing accounting, but a lot of what we're learning, we learned in the outing club. And so people skills and knowing how to touch base and be a leader that's sort of on, or be a peer to the rest of the team is really important.